Of course, with Nokia Shiramine getting her upgrade from BT5, of course there's going to be a video that's dedicated to the devious and diabolical Diaboromon. Granted, these elements are more so associated with the Diaboromon of the Our War Game movie, but with Cyber Sleuth, Arata Sonata does have this Digimon as a partner. And again, if you're looking for something to show off this deck, the DIGI-PANDA merch store has a sleeve called Party Wrecker that might have you interested. That aside, let's jump right into what new cards this set offers, along with other potential considerations. With BT22 Cyber Eden, the newest Arata Sonata does a lot of the heavy lifting with memory fixing and redirect attacks. Largely at this point, because your tamer assists with the blocking and protecting your life, you can now develop a completely aggressive board and set your opponent up to deal with even the backup that arrives when your Diaboromon are deleted. Interestingly, because this tamer does have an inheritable, I did actually peruse and consider one card for this deck, but did ultimately drop it. Eater Atom was an interesting card that I ultimately decided to drop, but it is a Digimon that can Digivolve on top of Arata Sonata for 4 memory. While true, Digivolving it off of a BT22 Arata would pass turn, the fact that Diaboromon decks can supplement with extra memory means that you could theoretically bump your memory up to 4 or 5 before you Digivolve into this card. And because it's not limited to just the memory fixer Arata, you could also use your 3-cost Aratas from BT5, effectively resetting their status on the board if they were stunned from suspending by a Digimon effect. But outside of these 2 new cards, a new line is developed from level 2 all the way to level 6. With tsumemon leading the charge, this level 2 can draw you a card when a CS, or Digimon with the unidentified trait, is played. And when you combo this with the oldest keramon in the history of the card game, the first token played is a +2 draw. With keramon, you reveal the top 3 cards of the deck, and add 1 Arata Sonata to the hand, and then 1 card with the unidentified or CS trait. Because of this specific card, you're able to not just add anything in the Digivolution line, but that Eater Atom as well if you do choose to pursue this concept. Its inheritable effect simply protects your Digimon with the Diaboromon and its text from leaving the battlefield if you delete one of your tokens. The Kurisarimon also has this effect, meaning for the lowly price of 2 Diaboromon tokens, you can, in combination with the keramon, save your Diaboromon stack, or frankly your level 5 stack as well. While this inheritable is decent, it's when Digivolving effect plays in Arata Sonata if you have 1 or fewer tamers. Now we're at the point of fighting for what goes in our level 4s in the deck. Infermon is intriguing in that on play and when Digivolving, you delete one of your opponent's play cost 5 or less Digimon, and then if you have Arata or Eater Atom in play, opponent's effects can't reduce this Digimon's DP or return to the hand or decks until their turn ends. And boy, can this make your level 5s extra sticky for that Blast Evo play. Do keep in mind though that DP reduction that persists through your turn means that your Infermon is probably going to get deleted. But when it comes to the Diaboromon, there's so much about this rare that makes me really happy. When Digivolving and when attacking, this Digimon plays out a Diaboromon token, meaning in total if you're able to keep turn, it's 2 tokens immediately on board because of its attacking effect. This Digimon also has an all turns effect in which when any of your other Digimon with the unidentified trait are played, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. This card has many parallels to the Diaboromon Ace, but ultimately in my mind is superior, in that its attacking alone can cause the lowest play cost Digimon to be deleted, not to mention, it has Alliance. You may notice a pattern in a lot of my recent deck profile videos, in that I'm looking at how to aggressively take out security. And why is that? Current meta results suggest that the dominating decks are Royal Knights, Armageddemon, and a handful of others. But ultimately, because these decks have a high damage output, this is where in my mind, you have to build a deck that can comparatively do the same thing. In looking at building Diaboromon, this is ultimately where specific cards can help you achieve this. With the new tsumemon, you no longer need to rely on attacking in order to draw. It's now simply playing an unidentified Digimon or a Digimon with the CS trait. And with keramons, I strongly prefer the draw power because that's what honestly helps. But when you get to the level 4, you can promote out and go into your typical Russian inheritable Kurisarimon in order to play out Arata if you don't have one in play, or the newest one to play out on Arata if you have 1 or less in play. However, there are so many variants of Kurisarimon that could assist with this deck, my personal favorite being the BT2 variant that gains you memory whenever a token is played. Infermons are largely dependent again on your meta, and promoting out is whether you'll likely go into BT17 Infermons for the D-Digivolve on a stack, and stun a Digimon with a play cost of 8 or less from attacking. But ultimately, this is where in regards to Diaboromons, do you want to be proactive or reactive? In regards to being proactive, you're anticipating potential issues, meaning maybe you want to maximize your tokens on board for the protection, and also use a Diaboromon that gives jamming and blocker. Or maybe you're the more reactive player who will ignore these types of Diaboromon and simply go into the newest Diaboromon so that when you attack, you spawn a token and delete your opponent's lowest play cost Digimon. Note that there are a lot of tricks that you can do here because in situations where your opponent might be floodgating you, using the EX6 Kurisarimon and just playing it, you can reduce its play cost by 3 for a measly cost of 2 by deleting one of your Digimon with the unidentified trait. Doing so means that you can now delete a play cost 3 or less floodgate, which could have been preventing you from playing tokens from the get-go. One reason why I also like the newest Diaboromon is because you can definitely set up multiple traps for your opponent to trigger. Despite Diaboromon putting out so many bodies, you can also now throw out a BT17 Keramon as a deterrent of your opponent from playing or digivolving into a level 5 or higher Digimon, because they'll risk you warping into Infamon and then de-digivolving or deleting their stack if it's an ace Digimon. And should they attack, a blast digivolve into Diaboromon means you'll play out another token, which then deletes their lowest play cost with BT22 Diaboromon, and deletes another Digimon with a play cost of 3 or lower, plus 2 to the maximum effect for each Diaboromon in play. And even if your opponent may try to delete or bounce your Diaboromons, this is where if you have 2 with the inheritable of Keramon or the Kurisarimon, you can ultimately delete the other in order to generate 1 or 2 additional tokens, which your opponent must factor into redirects, blocks, or more wideboard removal. Which means moving to the deck profile, where am I taking the deck from here? In regards to your level 2s, you can officially retire BT5 tsumemon because you no longer need to attack, because BT22 tsumemon. Attacking creates a more cautious situation in which you'll need to figure out how to out their stacks either before or during the attack, versus a new variant which simply needs you to play a Digimon with the unidentified or CS trait. Meaning this also triggers if you were to drop a Keramon to do a search for potential +2 overall once all is said and done. The other option I'm running with this deck being the BT17 tsumemon because its inheritable is an on-deletion effect in which if this Digimon is unidentified in trait, you gain 1 memory. And remember, with even cards like Kurisarimon mentioned earlier, deleting the stack with this inheritable converts Kurisarimon from a 5 cost on play to 2 cost and then 1 overall, giving you the opportunity to still digivolve into a level 5 and setting up for a Blast Evo play. For Keramons, I maximize on the newest one for its protection inheritable, but also its wide search effect. While you still could run the BT5 variant, it's lacking the inheritable, which is why for the secondary searcher of the deck, it's the EX6 version. However, because this card trashes the rest of the revealed cards, I don't have it at too many copies, but occasionally the inheritable for this card does come up, which leaves 2 variants left in which I did a dead split on the Keramons, which can draw cards when the same Digimon is played, and the BT17 Keramon which can be a trap for my opponent. Remember, because of the popularity of Royal Knights and Armageddemons, my thought process is if they play a Digimon or Evo into a level 5 or higher, I can cheat in an Infamon, which then cheats in a Diaboromon Ace. Moving to the level 4s, you'll immediately notice that I do not run any of the new Kurisarimon. I'm not saying you can't, but I originally did have it at 3 copies, but the issue here was that after playtesting a bunch, I realized if my opponent were to play a Floodgate that prevents me from playing Digimon by card effects, Infamon is my only out. So in regards to this, I needed to fix it, and this is where I started seeing all the potential different lines and combos as mentioned with the BT17 Kurisarimon. The rest are prioritized for their inheritables, one of which can gain me memory when a Diaboromon is played, and the other, gifting all of my Diaboromon Rush. Infamon's the only one I have at 4 copies right now is the BT17 variant, because of its when digivolving effect that de-digivolves. This can be very effective in controlling what your opponent does, especially if you have a BT17 Keramon in play. But for the remaining 2, both share the same inheritable of playing a token when the stack is deleted. It's just one deletes a Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less and then can't be DP reduced or returned to the hand or deck, while the other is an active warper that I can use in combination with scrambles without any caveats. As for Diaboromon, I've mainlined the BT22 teen one because you can check 2 security each turn with its alliance, while also setting up redirects with Arata Sonata. But for the secondary, I went with the Blast Evo plays to really keep control of the board if I'm able to again set up that Keramon to Infamon play. There are arguments that the EX6 Diaboromon should still be used for jamming potential and blocker, which means you're less reliant on the Aratas. But the downside here is that in a Royal Knight matchup, if you can actively keep their Digimon off the field, their King Drasil can't gain more sources. The EX6 is good for matchups in which you can effectively de-digivolve, but in decks that just play out their big bodies, it's much harder. Because of BT22 Diaboromon's all turns effect, I also considered using the EX1 Diaboromon because this Diaboromon has a security effect which plays a Diaboromon token. And remember, the newest Diaboromon's effect is on all turns, which means you can delete your opponent's lowest playcost Digimon here. But ultimately, I decided against it. Alternatively, if you want to leave the purist approach of this deck, you can also bring in Medieval Gallantmon, but I'm personally not a fan of this one. Level 7s, I do not run any armageddemons, though if the meta does evolve into a more Omnimon or Royal Knight based meta, I'd likely put 1 or 2 into the deck to stop the level 7 effects from proccing when they digivolve. A shame though, it doesn't stop on plays. Aside from these Digimon, the last option for consideration was again Eater Atom as a pseudo-hybrid, but it rarely came up and I'd rather just dedicate the slot for something else Diaboromon related. Option-wise, I do not run any defense trainings, though based on the number of tamers I have, you could very well drop an arata or 2 for it. Instead, again, I opted for the 2 scrambles because they can play out any of the keramons, which can then actively search if it's hit in security, or I can reduce my Digivolution costs and nab back a piece later. But the big addition to Diaboromon decks that I don't think many players have considered is Island of Adventure. This white option card can have its color requirement ignored if you don't have a face-up Island of Adventure in play. Its main effect adds the top card of your security to the hand, and then places itself face-up into the security. While it's face-up in security, all of your level 3 or higher Digimon get plus 2000 DP. All turns. Which means all of your 3000 DP tokens become 5000 DP. Alliance Diaboromon, now 18,000 DP when you check into security. It's easy. But its security effect is what gives true value and compensates for the lack of not using the newest kurisarimon, because you can now play a tamer from your hand without paying the cost. Other considerations were Catastrophe Cannon because of its ability to play a token and also trigger again that all turns effect of Diaboromon from the newest set. But it's too situational in my mind. And to round out the deck, I max out on all the tamers with memory fixers and a redirect by suspending, along with the token generators and additional memory if there's an unidentified Digimon in the trash. But you can opt to run less of these if you want to. Overall, this was a really fun deck to test, and I hope today you picked up something new that you could do with your Diaboromon deck. But what are your thoughts on the archetype, and if it's missing something, what is it? Let me know in the comments as I explore more deck profiles in the coming days, along with some statistics on the winners and losers of EX9 and BT22. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.